People who have or had a sexual relationship with your step siblings. Why and how did it work out in the end? My friend's brother married his stepsister. Sounds weird. But their parents got married in the same year as they did. So it wasn't like they grew up together or anything. There was even an article in the paper about how nice it was two families found love or something like that. My parents were dating for a while, then I came along. Somewhere along the line their parents, my grandparents, met and they got married. So my parents are now step siblings, but they were only together before the marriage. I had an experience as a teenager where one of my best friends was with his stepsister. I hung around their house a lot and her best friend was over a lot, who I was really into and started dating. To cover things up, I dated the stepsister, and my buddy dated the friend, as a reason for why we were always together. The four of us would go to movies, sitting in the car as our fake couples. Then in the theater he'd make out with his stepsister while I made out with the friends the whole time. It went for like 6 months, then I dumped the girl, and my friend and his stepsister called it quits because they knew it could never last. Not my personal experience, but I know a girl who snuck around with her stepbrother when they were younger and they just got married last year. Man, I had a whole reply made and then I realized you're asking about step siblings. Step siblings, siblings, what's the difference at this point? My great uncle has a relationship with his stepsister. I don't know how old they were when it started, but I know their parents got married when they were in their teens. They got married and have been since well before I was born. They have adult children. Our whole family just kind of ignores the whole step sibling thing. I actually didn't figure it out until I was almost an adult. I'm sure their kids know but have no idea how they addressed it. To be honest, they have a super dysfunctional relationship for reasons completely unrelated to their step sibling status. There is also a lot of drama between my uncle's blood related family and his step family / his wife's family, again not related to the weird step sibling marriage dynamic. TLDR, one of my extended family members is married to his step sibling. Family drama exists, not because of weird dynamic. A little backstory. When I was in 6th grade, my parents split, real nasty break. It hit me pretty hard, but time heals and within a few weeks I had come to terms with the situation. Fast forward 2 years, and my mother is seeing someone for the first time since the split. Nice guy, we will call him Pat. He taught a couple classes at the university in my town and also shared my interest in photography. And he had a gorgeous daughter, we will call her Amber. Naturally, as my mom and he got closer, she was around more and more, and we got to know each other pretty well. The first actual encounter we ever had was when I threw a party at my house freshman year. Mom and Pat took a weekend trip to my grandmother's house for a funeral, so I immediately took advantage of the vacancy. The first person to get the invite was obviously Amber, who snuck out of her stepmom's house and got a ride to my house, which was over an hour away, from one of her older friends. We proceeded to get absolutely rocked off my mom's Grey Goose, and things got spicy. We began to just dismantle each other on the couch, to the joy of my friends who took probably 10 videos apiece before we took it upstairs. I vaguely remember getting to my room, but I sure as shit have not forgotten one of the saddest handies of my life. I sat there, with all my clothes on mind you, while she emotionlessly flopped me around for about 15 minutes. I cut her off, confused with the outcome of such a potentially good situation, and inserted myself back into the party. Couple months later, after being a little awkward about what happened but able to move on, we met up at a family party. We got into a good conversation, and I decided to invite her upstairs to listen to some music or something, knowing if I was able to get her into my room I was golden. When we inevitably ended up in my room, I took my first shot almost immediately. My natural inclination was to just scoop her up and lay her down, and it worked perfectly. Still to this day I regard that night as one of the best, and we honestly went at it like rabbits for the next month or so. It began to slow down once our sophomore years started. The distance was tough without a car, and adding in more schoolwork didn't help either. But regardless, any family event was grounds for some impulsive sexual rendezvous. Now in college and a few states apart we are still pretty close. The friends with benefits thing has really fit our dynamic and we talk frequently. And plan to meet up on breaks very frequently. I think the reason it worked out so well is because from the start, we treated one another as friends rather than family. We were both hurting when we met, and bonded over our newfound emotional detachment. That was the catalyst that powered our relations from that point on. And we never really took into account what anyone thought or cared and just did us. So I guess you could say our situation is different, but overall it has and is currently working out pretty well for me. I can very easily imagine scenarios in this thread that are total nightmares, so I can't help but be appreciative of our relationship. So it wasn't necessarily a step sibling, my step aunt. So I was 15, living in a new place, and still a virgin. Coincidentally, I had just gotten kicked out of my house for not cleaning my room, and had to stay with my soon-to-be ex-stepdad, we'll call him Bob, around the same time his sister came up to visit, we'll call her Becky. I wasn't familiar with girls, my hand was my best friend and I'd only seen about a bazillion pornos. My Bob had always been the kind of guy to throw me out of my comfort zone, make me try new things for the betterment of becoming a man. Anyways, freshly jerked and about to fall asleep on my couch bed, Bob walks in, sits down next to me, and says there's a time when a boy becomes a man, and I love you, reeking of alcohol. He stumbles to his room, followed by Becky. Becky comes back out moments later in a spaghetti strap thong and sits next to me. Let it be known that while Becky is 28 with 2 kids, she's pretty effing hot. She tells me she's sleeping out on the couch with me tonight. I become the little spoon, and shortly afterwards she asks me if I've ever kissed a girl. I'm shaking, absolutely devastated that this is happening, and my little guy is standing at attention. She then asks if I've ever gotten a blow. Wouldn't you know she's going down on me harder than this Sunday night's WWE Super Slam. One thing leads to another and we're all dogging on the floor. Eventually I stopped shaking and fell asleep afterwards, only to be woken up with another round in the morning. After that, the rest is history. TLDR, 15-year-old me plus 28-year-old step-aunt equals my first time. Edit, for those asking about history, so after that we ended up banging on a daily basis. It also came with perks like being in dressing rooms with her at the store, and having a cool story to tell. Eventually it came out that it was all a ploy to boost my self-confidence and ended. Well, it worked. After our little thing I turned into a whore for a good minute. I wasn't gonna say anything, but this thread is so dead and I just feel terrible, so F it. When I was like 8 and my sister was 10, we had sex multiple times before she eventually said it had to stop. Neither of us knew it was wrong in any way, but I'm guessing she realized it was and that's why she stopped. We've never talked about it since, and I oftentimes wonder what her recollection of the events are. I'll answer any questions if you have them. At 8, were you aware of what you were doing? To an extent. Obviously it's been a long time and it's difficult to remember what exactly my state of mind was. I think that I knew what we were doing was an adult activity, like drinking or smoking. That being said, I don't think I knew that sex between brother and sister was such a taboo. Is she hot? My friends seem to think so. As bizarre as it sounds considering my story, I don't see her that way. A couple years after my parents' divorce, and I started spending weekends at my dad's, I was 15. My stepsister, who was 14, and I would go underneath the back deck at night to sneak a few cigarettes. The deck was roughly 10 feet above ground, and from underneath we could see if any lights that came on before anyone could catch us smoking. Particularly my dad, since our mom didn't care that we smoked. I don't remember how exactly it started, but we eventually added making out to our cigarette smoking ritual, and it gradually escalated from there as the weeks went on. After a few weeks of making out, we moved on to me fingering her, and once the weather was warm enough, we finally started having sex. We never discussed what we were doing outside of our smoking spot under the deck, and we thankfully never got caught. It became our regular routine for the rest of the summer. In the fall, she started dating a guy at school and we never had sex, or talked about it again. Friend of mine had a friends with benefits in high school. What he didn't know is their parents were secretly dating and ended up getting married. The benefits portion of my friend's relationship went away. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.